use electromagnetic wavelengths in order to communicate between people and countries and societies. All living matter that live in water have the same sort of receptor dishes, but they use chemical messengers, not electromagnetic, because their medium is not air, it is water. Everything has to flow and reach the destination by swimming to its receptor. And that's why each cell has got a bilayer membrane, because it has to protect itself from entry of anything that is not directly impacting the physiology inside the cell. So each cell has got selective receptors, and these receptors are only sensitive to elements that concern the activity of that cell. There are basically two oceans of water in the body. There is one ocean of water inside the cells of the body, and then there is an ocean outside of the cells of the body. The water that we drink goes directly, replenishes the ocean inside. The salt that we take maintains some of the water outside of the cells and balances these two oceans. These two oceans have to be in balance at all times. Just like the Atlantic and the Pacific, you can't let the Atlantic expand and the Pacific to dry up. The human body is just like that. You can't expand the content inside the cell of water and allow the water content outside of the cell to dry up. In fact, the reverse is true, because the physiology of the human body depends that the exterior water compartment expands and the interior water compartment in the cells begin to shrink. And this is where health problems occur, because when water is short inside the cells, the physiological functions of that cell don't occur as efficiently as they should. So that's why dehydration that settles in one or another area of the body becomes symptom producing because of malfunction of the physiology inside the cells. There are three major ways of delivering water into the cells. One is by diffusion at the rate of 10 to the power of minus 3 centimeters per second. The water goes through the cell membrane, gets into this moat area, and then eventually inside. When there isn't enough water in the body, because the human body has a lot of water. Let us get something clear. We have a lot of water in our body. We are talking about free water to perform new functions. Whatever water that we have in the body is already engaged in a physiological function. You cannot expect water to abandon its physiological function in the brain and go into the gut in order to dissolve or break down food, or vice versa. We need fresh water for fresh activity. If you want to eat food, you need fresh water. You can't rely on water that is in the body. That water is already engaged. And if you drank a glass of water 2 hours ago, that water is probably already sitting in your bladder and it's not in your circulation. So if you're going to eat, you better give the body some more water before you eat. Now, the other way of delivering water is by reverse osmosis, because the body tends to draw water out of the peripheral cells and bring it into the circulation and filter and inject that water into vital cells. And that's called reverse osmosis. And then you've got osmotic movement of water, because once insulin opens the gates and sugar goes in, and the mechanism is such that the other amino acids will go in, and they will carry some water with them into the cell to perform the functions that are required. And as we grow older, we lose our perception of thirst, and the body becomes dehydrated. And if we make the stupid assumption that any fluid is good enough as in place of water, then we dehydrate the body even further, and that is how, in this area, diseases occur. This is a process of reverse osmosis. For example, brain cells, it's 85% water, needs water vitally because all its neurotransmission mechanisms depend on energy from water. Its flow mechanisms need water. So there's a substance, I call it a neurotransmitter, or some people call it a hormone, sits on its receptor and converts it into a shower head with tiny perforations of 2 angstrom units that only allow one water molecule to go through the holes, single file. No elements will go in, no other elements that are dissolved in the water that's in circulation. Only water will go through. Vasopressin also puts, as its name implies, it puts a pressure on the capillaries in the area and produces a constriction force to squirt water into the cell. When we become dehydrated, more and more we depend on this and the constrictive force. As a result, we shut down the capillary systems, and that is how hypertension begins, peripheral resistance because of dehydration and this method of water delivery. So when the body has to resort onto reverse osmosis as a means of delivering water into the cells, it has to up the pressure, the injection pressure more and more, and that's how we become susceptible to a rise in blood pressure. It has been shown scientifically that between the ages of 20 and 70, the ratio of water content inside the cells to water volume outside of the cells changes drastically from 1.1 and becomes 0.8. Less water inside the cells than outside of the cells. The cells at the age of 70 are shrunken, small. At the age of 20, they are more juicy. They are more plum-like. Here, they're prune-like. The water has been sucked out because of dehydration that is settled in the body, and somebody had to sacrifice its water content, and that is what happens. Don't forget, we are a satellite species that is in space travel. If we don't recognize our thirst and satisfy it, the body assumes that it's going through a dry patch of space and is not replacing its water, is not able to replace its water content. This is a drastic change, and this is where disease occurs. Because don't forget, when we drink water, it goes inside the cells. Don't you remember that? So by not drinking water, we are producing this state, and that's why we are causing a disease state in the body. I don't expect you to read this, but let me explain it to you. When I researched water in cure of peptic ulcer disease, and after treating 3,000 or more cases, I realized that these people were thirsty, and we have labeled thirst as a disease condition. I needed to find out why. All of a sudden it occurred to me that the pharmaceutical industry insists on blocking the action of histamine in peptic ulcer disease. That's why they've got H2 blockers, and such as Tagamet and Zantac. Why are they doing this, I said. And I started researching. Immediately I discovered that histamine is the main neurotransmitter in charge of water regulation and drought management programs of the body. So whatever action histamine is taking in the body, it is to cope with drought. So whatever symptoms it's producing are symptoms of dehydration and drought. That was